Welcome back to another playthrough. Sorry it's been a delay getting this one out, but summer's hit me and things have gotten really busy. Anyway, the game we are going to be playing through this time is called Uncharted Board Game from Bandai. It is, I believe it's ported off of a video game, which I think was a console game first. I'm not sure if it's PC, maybe it's PC as well. But they have made a card game slash board game from the video game, so it's used the franchise for it. Anyway, it is not quite a deck building game, although you will be collecting cards and playing them down on the table as part of your resources. So I'm going to go over slightly how the game is played. We'll look at the characters, look at the starting cards, and then next turn we'll get into the first round. So speaking of rounds, let me just grab one of the little round cards. So again, will make sense when we actually play the game. As the start of the round, if there's any start of round effects on character cards or other cards, you would do those. And then there are three phases, and the phases are a recovery phase, which means any cards that you've tapped or used get refreshed. Then you have an action phase. I'll go through some of the actions. You can use a card in your play area. You can play a card. You can use a special effect on one of your characters. You can use a special effect from a card. I'll explain that. And you can attack an enemy and you can pass, and generally pass at the end. And then there's a damage phase where the enemies fight back at you, and then you have the end of the round. So of course, went over that really quickly. Doesn't mean a lot. Each character, there are 8 that come with the game. And I should say it is a 1 to 4 player game, and there's 3 modes you can play: solitaire, competitive, and cooperative. I'm going to do the competitive 2-player game playthrough. So each character starts with 4 basic cards, and the basic cards have basic on them. They have a white border, very easy to tell apart. You have the red card, which is the 45 Defender, gives you +2 to combat. You have a run card, which lets you draw 1 action card. You have a search card, which lets you put a search token onto one of the items out on the playmat area. And then your other basic card is the zip wire, and it lets you deal a damage to yourself, and you either draw 1 card or place 1 search marker. So those are the 4 basic cards that start the game with each character. So every character, you can play up to 4, has those starting cards. So the 2 characters I'm going to use for this playthrough, the first one, and there are 8 characters total that you can choose from in the game, is Chloe Fraser. And I'm using, there's 2 sides to each of these cards. There's a basic side, which has no special abilities, a little more hit points. And then there's an advanced side, which has special abilities and fewer hit points. And so what does all this mean? Well, if she has 4 life or less on her life tracker, it says whenever you play a card, you play it at a -1 cost. And I'll explain how you play cards here when we go through the actions. And the other thing is you'll see 2 red and 3 blue. If she has 2 red cards and 3 blue cards deployed in her play area, then she will get this special ability. And it says recover 2 life at the start of each round. So during the refresh phase, she would actually heal 2 life points. So that's Chloe Fraser, the first character. And the second character for the playthrough is going to be Tenzin. And I'm using, again, the special side, and every character's got the basic side. So we're going to use the special abilities, and his is if he has 6 or less life, he gets +1 attack value. If he has 3 or less, he'll get another +1. So these are cumulative. So of course, if he gets to 3 life or less, he'll have +2. If he has 3 yellow cards in his play area displayed, then he gets +1 on the attack value. So those are the 2 characters. And the starting player is designated with this token, and I randomly rolled a dice, and it will be Tenzin. We'll start the game. And so those are the 2 characters. Those are the basic cards they start with. And now I'm going to zoom into the board a little bit, and we'll talk about the 6 basic cards and how you set up the decks to play the game. So let me just readjust here a little bit. Okay, so I've just zoomed in a little bit here on the board, and there are 6 adventure card spaces on the playmat area. And you start by placing out the 6 basic cards, and they have basic and they have white borders. The first one is a guard, and he does 1 damage at the very last phase, which is the damage phase, and he has 5 life points, and you'll need to have 5 attack value to take him down. And then we have some, I guess we'll call them artifacts, and they have special abilities on them. We'll just go through them quickly. How artifacts work is these are the things you're going to put search tokens on. And as we play the game, I'll explain how you get points for, when they have been discovered. The basic gist is when there's a 3 up here on this card, when there are 3 search tokens on this card, it is discovered. It will go to the discard pile here. A new card will be drawn. So that's sort of basically how it works. So this is the incense burner. It's worth 2 victory points for the person that has the most search tokens on it when it is discovered. And its special ability when it is put into the discard, when it has been discovered, is it stands 1 resting card in your play area. So it refreshes 1 card in your play area. The next one here, we have the 3-stone coral ring. Whenever a player with 1 or more search markers on this card plays a green card, he or she plays it at -1 cost. And we'll get into that. It's worth 1 victory point. Right here is the wrathful deity statue. And when it is discovered, whoever discovered it is going to get +1 action card to draw. And the mask here, each player with 1 or more search token on this card gains +1 attack value, and it takes 3 to discover it. And next we have the 9-jewel ring, and it says whenever a player with 1 or more search markers on this plays a yellow card, he or she plays it at -1 cost. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. Let me just zoom up here a little bit. So up at the top, this is the victory track, marker track. And of course, I'm having Tenzin is going to be the blue player, and I will have Chloe be the red player. And these are just victory track markers, and they go there. All right, let me zoom out again here, and we'll talk about the other 3 decks of cards. Then we'll get into the starting hands that the players will receive, and then next time we'll get into a round play. Okay, so just off to the right here, we have the discard pile. Whenever you play a card out of your hand and you discard it, it will go into the discard pile. This is the adventure deck, and the adventure deck is a variable number of cards. There are normal cards. There are 20 normal cards and 20 advanced cards. And the advanced cards go on the bottom. The normal cards go on the top. So as you start going through this deck, you will go through the normal cards, which are not as difficult, then you will get to the advanced cards. That's how that works. In a 2-player game, you remove 12 cards from each of the decks. So the normal deck, you remove 12 cards. The advanced deck, you remove 12 cards. So you're going to have a deck of 16 cards here, 8 advanced on the bottom, 8 on top. The action cards is just this huge pile. You use them all, you shuffle them all up, and you put them here. There are something called special actions here. These are better cards than your basic action cards. And the only way to get these special action deck cards is every time you defeat an enemy, and enemies, of course, are the little characters. This one here is a guard. There are other ones in the deck that will show up. When you defeat an enemy, you will draw 1 special action card. And now I might as well talk about how the game can end. The game ends at the end of an entire round when one of these decks is empty. So when the last card is moved out of one of these decks, that triggers the very last round of the game. So that's how it can end. It can also end if one of the characters loses all their life points. They go to 0. And then if the other character is still alive at the end of the round, that character would win. So what I said, if any deck runs out, you look at who has the most victory points at the end of the round, and that player wins. If both players die at the same time on the same round, then the game ends in a draw, and I guess basically nobody wins. All right, now let's take a look at there's 5 different actions you can do, and we'll take a look at some of the cards and how they work. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about the 5 actions. I won't get into too much detail. Again, you'll see it all happening as I'm playing the game. So the first of the 5 types of actions you can take is called using a card in your play area. And in your play area, you have your cards face up. You get the 4 basic ones, and you can use one of them as one action. So for instance, let's take a look at this card, the zip wire. If I want to use this as one action, you just tap the card and you can pick either drawing an action card or placing a search marker. So that's one type of action. Again, it will make sense when we play the game. Another one is to play a card. Well, each player, and I might as well explain it briefly, at the start of the game, in a two-player game, each character is going to draw 3 action cards for their hand. In a 3-player game, the first 2 players draw 3 cards. The third player in a 3-player game is going to draw 4 cards. In a 4-player game, the first 2 players draw 3 cards. The third player draws 4 cards. The fourth player draws 4 cards and gets 1 victory point. And you determine that based on the first player who has the start token. So the start token you determine before you hand out the cards at the beginning of the game. Of course, in a 2-player game, that's not as important because each player just gets 2 cards. All right, so it says play a card from your hand. Well, I just randomly, let me draw a few more here just to mix it up a bit. So say this is your hand after a few rounds of the game. You've got all these cards. You've got a couple of red ones. You have a couple of blue ones, you have a couple of green ones. In the upper left corner, you can see here a number. This is the cost to play a card. Well, how do you play a card? If I wanted to put this card out on the table in front of my character, it costs 0. So I can play that as an action for no cost. However, if I want to play this blue card, this run 1 card here, it costs 3. So that means I have to take 3 cards from my hand, put them in the discard pile, and then I can place this card in front of my character in the play area. Okay, there's a limitation to how many cards you can have out on the table at one time. Each character can have 3 reds, 3 greens, and 3 blues. You can replace a card on the table as well. So if I already had 3 red cards on the table in front of me and I have a limit of 3 and I wanted to put this one out, I can play it, but I have to discard one of my other red cards on the table. So that's the second action you could take, which is playing a card. Now there's also something called using a special ability for the card. Each one of these cards also has another purpose. If it is a red card and you are doing an attack action, which is the next action you can take, which is basically you're attacking an enemy. You can take any number of red cards from your hand, and for each one you discard, you get +1 on your attack ability. So for instance here, if I was attacking the guard, I could take these 2 red cards, discard them to get +2 on the attack value. That's what the red card discard is for. You can discard a blue card, and when you discard a blue card, you recover 2 life. So just discard a card as an action, recover 2 life on your character. The green card is if you discard one of the green cards, that gives you an immediate 2 additional actions during the current turn. So normally you get 2 actions on your turn. If I discard this card right now, I get 2 additional actions, cost me 1 to play the card, so now I have 3 actions. So it gives you bonus actions for playing blue card or green cards out of your hand. Okay, that is the perform 2 actions. So that's how each of the cards is used for playing a card and using the special ability of this card. Now we have attacking the enemy. Well, how does attacking the enemy work? Well, everyone's got the basic card in there on the table at the start of the game, and you can see here the gun icon is a +2. You would tap the card, it gives you a +2 to your attack. Well, you can see that the basic guard has a health of 5, so the +2 is not enough to kill him. However, if you also had this card down on the table, it is a +3, and if you tap both of them together, +2 +3 is 5. It's enough to defeat the guard. The guard would be discarded. The player would get the 1 victory point, and a new Uncharted Adventure Deck card would replace the one that has just currently been removed. That is the attack action. The last action of the 5 that you can perform is called a pass. When you do not want to perform any more actions, you can pass. The first player to pass, now we're just talking the 2-player game, gets a special ability. You can either place a search token on one of the artifacts, or you can grab 1 action card. If you are the last player to pass in the round, in that turn that you're doing, then you get the first player token. Okay, I think that pretty much covers the rules. I've shown you the characters, I've shown you the basic cards, how things generally play. So next episode, join me and I will go through round 1, which we will see how everything works. And I must mention there are 4 bosses that come with the game. They are extremely tough characters. There's a helicopter, a tank, a monster, and a really bad character. So there's 4 different bosses. I randomly took one and stuck it in with the advanced cards at the bottom. So our advanced card deck is actually 17 cards. One of them is the boss somewhere in the last 9 cards of the deck. Okay, join me next time when we do turn 1, round 1 of Uncharted the board game. And I must say, it's actually a pretty good game. I think it's still fairly readily available. I picked it up at my local game store for just over 20 bucks, which was really inexpensive. But anyway, I hope you'll join me in the playthrough. You can see if you like the game or not. Again, it plays 1 to 4. I don't particularly like the solo rules. The competitive game looks like it's the most fun, and the cooperative is just kind of odd. So we'll see the competitive playthrough with 2 players. All right, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Join me next time for round 1 of Uncharted. Thanks for watching.